Hello and welcome to Drawing and Dragons. Today, the video is going to be a little bit different. I decided to actually record me drawing the thumbnail art. That was a decision I made a while ago to try to actually make my own thumbnails and not just make, like a basic picture here and there that takes 2 seconds. I decided to actually work on my artist skills a little bit and make thumbnail art for it. I usually am going to be doing them as like sort of scenes of that encounter, of that location, or maybe I'll do like specific items, artifacts, or other things related to wherever the video is. So I think that could be kind of fun. So this one right here, you're going to be seeing me draw the very first room in the Trynax trial. This is where the players wake up in the Trynax trial, and you'll see that there's a podium in the center, and there's 3 doors, and they have to activate the scroll, and that's how all that magic happens. And then they are able to choose which door they want to go into, and all of that. But today's topic is how to begin world building and where you should start when you are beginning to build your own homebrew setting. I totally can understand doing a module, right? I have a couple modules. Tomb of Annihilation is one that I have, and that's really fun. Players really liked it, and it is helpful. So if you are a new dungeon master or you have new players, feel free to just run like Lost Mines of Phandelver. That is a perfectly good adventure. It'll take you a good amount of time and your players will be satisfied. It's a very good one. I've run it before, and it is very good. But if you are building your own homebrew setting, I recommend you don't build an entire setting. Start with a town, and that's pretty common advice that you'll hear in different D&D forums. And if you watch other YouTubers like Matthew Colville and other things, you will commonly hear just start with a town because it's simple, it's easy, and it's what your players need at the beginning. Now, this obviously depends on how you're planning to start your campaign and what sort of theme you're going for, and hopefully that's something you talked with your players about. You can totally have like a bigger world map and like in general, here's this vibe of this country, here's this vibe of this country. Like I have Nosfari, they ban magic, they are very religious, and then I've got High Rend, and they're super crazy about magic and all that, and I've got Brevtense. I've got all these other countries, just enough to sort of get the creative juices flowing in that session 0 when you're planning things with your players. But when it actually comes to world building and nailing things down, start with just a town. Because if you sit there and you go, oh, well, I need this, I need how the whole world was built, I need all these countries and all the unique histories, and then I need to describe how the gods created the world and all this big stuff, it's stuff that your players probably won't get to. I can tell you so far in the current campaign I'm running, I do have deep lore and world built type things, but my players haven't even approached it yet. They are probably about 6 or 7 sessions in, which isn't very long, but they haven't even begun to touch on that stuff. By the time they do, they'll probably be higher level. It'll be months from now. And by then, I could have all that built, right? So if you are building your world for the first time, start small and with time build up and with your players build up. That is a very important piece. When I first originally built my setting, the only thing I had planned was a single village and a city next to it. The village was only a few miles from the city. And so this tiny little village waterside has a general goods store, a tavern, a temple, a fishing hut, and some houses. And it's next to some water, it's surrounded by forest, and there's a single road that goes right past it. That's it. It's very simple, very easy. It keeps things in a manageable level for you and for the players, especially if you are a new DM, because a town can only have so many NPCs, and there's not as much setting and much things to know and worry about. Whereas if you build like an entire country with all of these locations, that's a lot to start with. That's a lot of work for you up front. And yes, there is some benefit to planning it all out ahead of time because then you can sow in the seeds and really build in the culture. But if it's your very, very, very first time, I don't recommend it. It's just a lot of extra work that you won't really need right away. So with this town, right, you begin with a tavern or a general goods store because those are the things your players are most likely going to go to. Okay. What I like to do is I like to ask my brother, Boba Canoosh one. He doesn't play D&D, but he plays like video games and stuff. So I like to ask him for tavern names because it's fun to kind of see what he creates. So try asking someone who doesn't play D&D in your life, and it's kind of fun to see what sort of funny names they make, and then you can almost build the tavern around that. So he'll give me ones like Code of the Frog, and I made like this really scummy tavern, or he'll give me ones where it's like the Old Owl Inn, and I make this big owl carving as the like centerpiece above the tavern, above the bar, and it's kind of fun to build around that, even if it is just a little bit of decoration or something. Then you probably want a general goods store because your players might want to buy some equipment or things in this first town. They really don't start with much money though, so usually they're not going to do a ton of shopping. But if they go out, do an adventure, come back, and they're rewarded with some money by maybe you have like a mayor of this tiny town, or maybe you just have a sheriff or something that gives them some monetary reward, they may want to go to the general goods store and buy some extra equipment or things. Plus, it just adds to your town a bit. You also may want to have a temple because religion is usually a pretty good source of possible quests. It's also a source of healing in town and worship. And if you think about it, if you've ever been through a small town, there are the three most important things to have in a small town: bars, general goods stores, and churches, right? I've driven through like Wisconsin and Minnesota plenty of times, and that's pretty much always in every small town. There's a lot of bars, a lot of churches, and a lot of like general goods, mom and pop sort of shops. So I think those are probably the most important things to have in pretty much every small town. Then you can start thinking about, okay, well, how do these people get their food, water, shelter, and income? Right. So, well, they've got their shelter, obviously. They've got these houses, they've got these inns and taverns and things. How do they get their water? Well, maybe you have a river next to it or running through it. Maybe you have a lake or a pond. Easy peasy. And then maybe for food, think about, okay, well, maybe they're hunters. There's a forest nearby, so they do hunting and gathering in the forest. They're close to the city, so they could potentially just get food from there. Maybe they have a farm or something or a garden, right? So just think about how they might get their food, and then that can kind of tie into their income. So how the people of the town make their money? Well, obviously you have someone selling stuff at the general goods store, and somehow they have to get that stuff. So they probably have people in the town that craft it for them. You might also have farmers and loggers and fishers and hunters. These very like down to earth small town sort of things. That's usually what I base my small towns around. Is the very like down to earth, the basic necessities of survival and living and comfort. That's usually how I begin. So once you have your small town, then maybe make a city. Because a city is definitely a step up from a town, because then you have walls and you have more people and you have more goods, and then that's where guilds and government kind of come into play, and that can expand your players' ideas of the game. Because if you start with just a town, there's really not much governance and not much politics and not much guilds at all or anything like that. So it's kind of this expanded like chunk of the game that you're sort of adding if they then go from a small town to a city. And so then once you build a city, you kind of need the surrounding area because you need to know what threats nearby or what sort of environment nearby might affect your city. So my city, my very first city I built, had some forests to the north and forests to the south. To the west was the ocean, and to the east was farm fields and then plains. Um, and so that made it very easy to sort of think about, okay, well, they've got a lot of farms here, so they might have more guard towers out there. And then to the north and south, they've got like small logging villages or fishing villages like Waterside and different things like that. So you sort of expand as your players explore. My players from there said, okay, we're going to do this. And then they were talking, and then they received a mission, and it was to go to the nearby desert. And I was like, wait, I don't have a desert. So then I had to build a desert. So then I expanded my view a little bit further so you could see just the corner of this desert. And they're like, okay. And they started journeying that way. And that took a couple sessions. So while they were journeying, I was expanding further, expanding further. And then suddenly you have a whole country. That's what I recommend personally, is that you start with the town, you get a nice tavern, a nice general goods store, and a nice temple or church or something like that. And then when you expand based on your needs for the game and the needs of the players and where they plan to go, and get ideas from them as well. Say, hey, what should we name this town? And then maybe they'll come up with a good name, or maybe you can take that name and kind of switch around a bit, fit your needs better. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it a lot. Please make sure you like and subscribe. It really does help a ton. Leave a comment below if you like this video. And thank you very much, everybody. See ya.